Yes, I've had to grab a cup of lemon tea. It's been quite interesting and deep discussion. Thank you so much.
Yes.
It's a beautiful. I reflect a lot because I've been working very closely with you, either at the DUT level or SASCE level, and I really can relate to the type of things we used to engage on, and I'm sure this must be very informative to all the stakeholders and the listeners out there. This takes us to the next discussion, which I really want us to touch on, and that is the work that you have been doing at Southern African Society for Cooperative Education, and what it stands for and what it can do for this country. I mean, you talk about the University of Waterloo, and the others from Thailand that you have worked with. But there is this body called Southern African Society for Cooperative Education, which has got a very long and rich history, especially with the old Technicon movement, Technicons, and now the Universities of Technology. But for somebody out there who doesn't know what SASCE is, having heard what cooperative education is, what is SASCE and how does it fit into the bigger scheme of things? And what is it doing, and what do you think it can still do for the country and the continent and the world?
Okay, all right. Thanks, Sam. Yes, the Southern African Society for Cooperative Education, or SASCE, as we all learned to call it, was started more than 40 years ago by the rectors of the Technicons. And it was to bring together the people who are engaging with industry and have discussions about how to better engage with industry and for the placement of students, etc. Because, the Technicons were very strong in what at that time was called in-service training or placement of students, and which we call now work. And it was largely that, and of course the engagement with industry. So this society had existed for a long time. When I took this position as the head of cooperative education at the ML Sultan Technicon, one of my KPAs was that I had to work with SASCE and find out what SASCE is about. So I then joined SASCE. And one of the first questions I asked was, so what has SASCE done for the institution? And the chair at that time told me, well, he named someone at my university. He said, we sent this person to a conference in the USA. And I went back and discussed that with my vice rector, and I said, I don't think that's what the society should be doing. It's good if they can afford to send someone, but I think it has a lot more to do in our country. So that thought has been with me with several years, having sat on the SASCE board. There was representation from each Technicon, and there were one or two industry partners invited. And I even got onto the executive committee, and then Professor Ed.3, who was the rector at Durban University of Technology, was the chair or president of SASCE then. But my question was, surely we're missing something, because if you look at the whole cooperative education model, there's your industry or external party, there's your university or Technicon or college, and then there's a student. So that's the triangle. That's the original triangle. I say, but here in SASCE, we only have one party, which is the institution. So it doesn't make sense. How are we engaging? So I kept on raising this question. And then during Professor Dupree's term, when he became Vice Chancellor at DUT as well, I seized that opportunity to say, let's get together a few stakeholders. And I think, Sam, you were one of them. And Brian Forbes and Brian was working at retired from CPUT at that time, and we were using him on a part-time basis. So Brian Forbes and I had a lot of discussion on this. So we convened a team of the SASCE people, in other words, the one person from each institution, and then some of the key industry people we knew that worked with us on a regular basis. There was an HR manager from Bell Equipment, for example. There was yourself, and there were a few other people. And I said, let's look at how we can re-engineer SASCE, but looking at our industry partners as well. And that's what we did. We revisited it. Initially, I didn't even let the Technicons people speak. I asked industry, what do you expect of us? Now, fortunately, at that stage as well, one of the industry partners was Kava Pop, who worked at, what I've just forgotten, it's the organization now, but he used to be an industry partner of ours.
Yes.
So he came in and he echoed what we were saying. He says every time he comes to SASCE, he hears the same things from the Technicons. There has to be something else. So we did this workshop, which we held at DUT, and we came up with the thing. And then in 2011, we launched a new SASCE. And this was where it was different. The SASCE board now had, apart from the Technicons or Universities of Technology, it had a representation of the Minister of Higher Education, the NSA, the Executive Officer of NSA himself said, we invited SACWA, we invited CHE, we invited the CETAs, there were CETA CEOs sitting with us, and we invited industry. People like Soberson and Hilton were sitting there as well. And we had someone from SACPO, the TVET colleges. We were supposed to have someone from the National Student Body, but that hasn't taken up. So the whole structure, the whole face of SASCE changed in 2011. And the minister launched it, and he said he was glad SASCE didn't die, because there's a place for it to advocate the importance of work-integrated learning, to make students more employable. He says we can't have so many, and I think at that time it was about 250,000 unemployed graduates. And if you looked at those unemployed graduates, most of them had not had wool in their program. The ones with wool were generally employed. So we could see the difference straight away. The research overseas showed us that as well. Australia, who started wool long after what we had as a Technicons. When I went there in 97, they didn't even know much about wool. They then instituted every program, every single university has to have 25% wool in all its programs. And they had done their research and homework to show that the wool students were better employed, started with higher salaries, and contributed more to the companies. And of course, the companies saved. The Fortune 500, 80% of the top 100 companies, 80 of them train students. And they say it's a big saving, it's a strategic direction they take, but it's also a big saving for them, because they don't have to retrain someone they employ off the street or someone they take straight from a university who doesn't have work. So we used all of that to create this board. And it is a board that I don't think we have that sort of membership in any of the other boards across. But more especially, it's a non-profit organization. So this is how the board was launched. We relied on the funding that came from subscriptions of the member Technicons, and we opened that up to other universities now. And of course, individuals who served on it. And Sam, you were one of the individuals. And so basically that's what it is, primarily for the advocacy of wool in programs, for employability of students, making students more employable. And when I say that, I mean self-employable as well, in terms of entrepreneurship, etc. We actually, one of the companies we had was Telkom, Mr. Bonnie Gantile, who you interviewed a few weeks back.
Yes.
He was one of those who came on board as well from Telkom. So we had all those inputs and says, what do we need to do to influence curriculum?
And I guess it's also very important that people understand that actually SASCE is an enabler, right?
It is an enabler.
It doesn't
It is a
replace.
facilitator.
It doesn't take the responsibility of the individual cooperative offices of various universities or that of the hiring offices of companies.
It
is most.
Sam, you are spot on, because we have made sure we alerted all the co-op units that we're not taking their job. We're adding to value to it, and the same with the companies. Your HR people still had to do the job. But here was a national organization that you could link with, for you to be able to source your students, etc. And even when the TVET colleges join, that same thing, that we'd be able to, through the networks, be able to link you up with people who require your students, to show them what best practice is, to engage with similar organizations internationally and bring them on board as well, to run workshops of best practice. So we are part of a World Association for Cooperative Education as well. I'm a director. First I started as a director on the board, and now I'm actually part of the executive committee. We have the lady Annie Malatswane from DUT who sits on that as well, and of course SASCE sits on it as well. And Dr. Brink from UJ, who heads the...
So there's a very strong representation of the South African institutions at WACE.
Yeah, we do. And the International Research Committee is divided into continents, and there's a vice president on each continent. And Dr. Rodin Brink from UJ, who's the executive member of SASCE, is that person in South Africa. So she drives the research agenda. So that was the other thing we offered to bring to organizations, research into working and learning as well, which is different from just the typical paper or academic research that people were engaging at institutions. And of course, that was a value add that the industry saw with us as well, that we could enable research. And you're right, I think the word is enabler. SASCE is always never intended to take anyone's job description away from them in terms of what they do, but to support that. We work very well with the CETAs, and since we started 2011 as well, we also wanted to create a forum. Previously, there used to be a SASCE conference every couple of years, hosted by one of the technicons. Again, what dismayed us, it turned out to be mostly technicon people attending with very few industry. We then created, as the SASCE board, and you are part of the board at the time, what we call Will Africa.
Yes.
Because one of our mandates is to move into Africa as well. We already had people from Namibia sit on the SASCE board, but we wanted to extend that. So we created Will Africa. We wanted people to come and talk, not only to deliver research papers, but on their own experiences in companies. The anecdotal stories that you hear from HR people, what happens with students, etc. And I must say, the first two were hosted by University of Johannesburg in Johannesburg. We had a good representation from industry, from the NSA. The NSA actually, we started holding this in collaboration with the National Skills Authority. Yes. Each of the three Will Africas that we've held has been with them. The third Will Africa was held in Durban in 2018. This year's one was supposed to be in September, but we've obviously deferred it to next year. So that was how SASCE intends building networks of academia and industry partners. So that there's collaboration at all fronts. It's not just a once-off, take my student and goodbye when the student's gone. These networks, and basically the model we've been using at DUT, we're trying to push SASCE to take that lead nationally to be able to do that, to be able to bring the different organizations to run workshops. We've brought people down from Waterloo University to run workshops, not only with us, they've run workshops in other parts of Africa. We have run workshops in Kenya and in Rwanda, and Mr. Sipangane, the current president of SASCE, represented us there. We brought in one of our industry partners from Thailand, Western Digital, who trains DUT students in Thailand. He came down to speak the industry perspective. And Sam, the interesting thing he pointed out, that his research in his company shows he takes about 100 WIL students from within his country and outside every year. And as I said, it's a large company. It's the biggest in the world, 26,000 employees at the site in Bangkok, although it's USA owned. There's a 400% return on investment if you host a student. And he says, for companies, that's the bottom line. You must be able to look at that. And we visited them several times. I've taken people up to them. I've taken the NSA to them. Their model of a company training is one of the best. Wow. You know, they really put a mentor. In fact, before they employ the student, they do Skype interviews. Every Skype interview is not just the HR person. There's the engineer who's going to be the student's mentor and supervisor. So they together select a student who they take. They find the projects for the students before they take. So it's not a matter of taking the student and say, oh, but I don't have anything for you to do, so can you please go and do photocopying for me? It doesn't work that way. You know, so those are the models we're learning from. Those are the models we're bringing to other institutions. And by the way, private colleges and providers are members of SASCE as well.
I think we need more of these best practices, because sometimes people will just look at it and they see the way it's Southern African Society for Cooperative Education. They're thinking that it's just us getting together and dreaming out things. Meanwhile, there is an global ecosystem of work integrated learning where universities and big corporates in the world participate, because we almost make it very easy for sourcing of new entrants into the industry in a more safe and more progressive and exciting way.
Yes, Sam, I agree with that. I think there is best practice elsewhere. There's best practice in this country, and we need to learn. And often the best practice is not in an institution. It may be in the workplace. You know, and these are the people, like at the conferences and the workshops we run as SASCE. These are the people we want now. Obviously, this year we couldn't run workshops or have the conference, but we have started webinars. We are going to start with the private colleges, etc., and run webinars, and then get people, even international people, to contribute to that.
Have we made good use of our relationship with World Association of Cooperative Education? Is it? I don't know how the model works, but have we made it a little bit more visible so that it can help in the advocacy work that local employers can sometimes also look at it? Maybe one of the good days I should speak to a representative of WACE, and maybe together with you again or somebody else from SASCE, and just make it more common in the mind, top of mind for people. That actually through this, look, if you can send students to Disney World and Thailand, if we can do more such, I mean, let people go and learn from University of Waterloo and do exchanges as well between universities, because we are not going to win this battle of lack of skills anytime sooner. So there's always going to be a need. And there's never enough of us. I mean, there's never enough of models. There's never enough of progress. It's just to give much broader space and options for our people. We are part of the world now, but I don't think we have gone to the world enough. That's my sense anyway.
Sam, yes, you remember in 2013 we hosted the World Conference in Durban.
Yes.
For WACE. It was one of their most successful conferences, even though a lot of Americans and Europeans did not attend. And the reason they did not attend, which I found out from the CEO of WACE at that time, was he himself was afraid. Mandela was in hospital at that time. They were afraid that if Mandela died, this country would be in turmoil, and they didn't want to be caught in that at that time.
Is that so? Was that the reason?
That's the reason, and that he admitted to me. But even so, we made some of the biggest profits WACE has ever made, because we had such good support from South Africa, the East, as well as a few of the other African countries. So in terms of WACE, that's been a bit of my misgiving with them, that they were very USA-centered, and I've raised this with them several times. The Secretariat has now moved to Canada. Dr. Stoneley is not there as a CEO anymore. The current CEO, they created a CEO president type person. The lady Nancy, who was from Canada, she's now resigned. The Secretariat is based at the University of Waterloo. The reason she's resigned is that because waste has run dry in terms of funds, and they're looking at a committee running it now. But one of the lessons I've learned, for me, the value of waste was the networking. When I attended the world conferences, the networking with people in those countries, or the networking with organizations similar to ours. And that's how, for example, I started placing students in Thailand. It was not through waste, but the local CASE, the Thailand Association for Cooperative Education. So we set up partnerships, etc. So we've done a lot of that. Waste has been in the background. The Thailand has a waste satellite office, and they have a board, and I actually serve on that board as well for waste. So I've engaged with waste. I think it's changing its mind, but I keep on telling them that I think they're too Eurocentric or American-centric, too westernized, and that is why SASCE is driving the move into Africa rather than waste. And they created a charter last year at the World Conference, and they wanted all organizations to sign. SASCE did not sign it, and I'll tell you why. In terms of placing students overseas, a lot of these countries, for example, place students in Thailand, a lot of the countries, USA, Canada, Australia. But the only country that most often offers placement for Thailand students is South Africa.
I see.
So it's not a two-way street. Secondly, the experience I had, I was placing a student in Thailand, but remember the company is owned by the USA. The moment they heard that the student is from Zimbabwe, they said, they're not willing to take the student. So I raised this when they wanted us to sign the charter. I say, can you guarantee that every single student of ours is treated equally wherever they come from? And of course, they couldn't guarantee that. So we said, and my team, Ms. Nessie was there, Dr. Brink was there, we decided we'll hold on with signing that until they give us that assurance, because we're moving into Africa. So what if my student comes from Rwanda? Does that mean he can't get placed, or he comes from Zimbabwe because the USA has an anti-Zimbabwe policy? But they expect us. There's a whole lot of American students that come and work in South Africa. Not through us, but through other organizations. But the quid pro quo doesn't happen every time. So I said, our opinion is we need to really get that right. And this whole issue of Black Lives Matter has sort of highlighted that. That we're not really treated equally. They look down on us. They don't want to take our students. But we take a lot of Thai students, for example. At DUT, we've placed quite a few in industry. The industries here are open. We are open. But again, waste, I think, was at the point where the old SASCE was, where it was an academic body. The academic professors were looking at this as a body where they can present the research papers, etc. And I kept on asking the question, but where's the industry partner?
Has that changed now?
Sorry?
Has that changed?
No. It isn't. At the meeting, it was in Cincinnati in June last year, when they talked about the charter. I asked everyone at the board meeting, board of directors, can any one of you from industry put up your hand? I think the only person from industry there was Dr. Sampan from Western Digital. So I said, to me, that's a problem. It's like the old SASCE, you only have the institution. Now you need to bring the other partners. And the point is, some of the organizations, the associations like the Canada Association, they don't want the industry partners. They want it to be an academic body. So that's where the difference between waste and us. We will still engage with waste. We want it to be more like a federation type of thing. We've always pushed, like FIFA, where you have your national associations, and that's like the mother body, the mother of the networks. So I hope people are going to see. I think as new members come, we're probably going to look at that. I had a lot of support for what I was saying, even from people who did sign that agreement. So what we said made sense. But, we are typical South Africans. We'll stand up and say it when others are not willing to say it. But anyway, so WASE, I think, is an important body. The future is there. We just need to get in there and change it. And it's something I believe in. You can't change an organization from outside. You got to get in and you got to change it.
But it doesn't mean that these issues you are raising you are not able to raise them there at WASE. You do raise them. So there is a platform for it.
I do raise them. Sam, one of the things I learned through being involved with the unions as well, say it when you get a chance. You may never get a chance again. And then you become party to that if you sit there silently.
And currently, where is SASCE is in the South African context? Are we pumping still well? Are we making the necessary impact? Or what are the challenges?
Sam, the challenges for SASCE here is that it's a volunteer body.
Yes.
And all of us have other jobs. And sometimes you get so caught up with your job that your volunteer organization has to take a backseat sometimes. So we are looking at now, with the new executive, we are actually looking at putting in an operations manager.
Yes.
And let that person run. We could still have the CEO or the president, but you need someone to manage the office to keep things up to date, to do the day-to-day operations. So basically that's where we're going. We're workshopping that in a couple of weeks' time, and we'll take it to the board. Because I've been acting CEO, but I've had to act because Mr. Gantile resigned, and they asked me to act because I have the history of SASCE. But it's been a challenge because, as I said, I have a normal job to do.
Yeah.
I have the World Association, which I'm involved in, which I think is important for us. I'm not saying it's not important. I think it is. We're expanding into Africa. SASCE has made inroads. So you need someone to drive these things.
Beautiful. So at least there is still future-looking attitude. So we're not saying it can't stop. It has to function. Challenges will always be there.
It won't function. We're still going to host those workshops, capacity building workshops, etc. We're still going to bring in those international partners, which I've learned through WASE as well, who the experts are and who we can get on board. And we'll bring those the best practices in. So I think there's still a big future for SASCE. I think we need to get more of the institutions involved and say that there is other routes apply apart from just going research and publications. A route that I think important for the country because we're making the students more employable. Our unemployed graduate numbers are still too high. We've got to do something, and the only way is to change the mindsets of academics, etc., to say we need to work in partnership. Higher education cannot stand on its own. It has to work in partnership, and the white paper on post-school education says that. Minister Nzimande is firm on that, to say we've got to work together to make sure when these students leave us, they're employable and entrepreneurial as well. So there is a future for SASCE. I'm hoping the functioning would get a bit better with the appointment of the operations manager. It would. But I must say, I also want to thank all the people who give up their time, people like yourselves and others that have been on board for a long time. It's been at the expense. If you take what happened with Mr. Pop, he actually got quite ill during his term as president. But there's a whole lot. There's Ms. Nessie, who's the CEO of ETDP CETA, who's the key driver at SASCE as well. And last week she told me we cannot let this organization die.
Yeah, beautiful. That's wonderful. It's good to hear. And I think we post this COVID-19 challenges, we don't know what other opportunities and challenges are going to be facing us. I can imagine we're going to have to re-look at everything that has changed since this. So you may never know, but we can hope that we will still be plugged in and address the serious challenges of unemployed graduates.
I think so, Sam. And if you must remember as well, largely through you, DUT became a partner to the Maponya Institute as well.
Yes.
And the lessons I've learned from Richard Maponya as well, we're trying to bring in, and DUT honored him as well, to say that we have to recognize that as well, that it's not just getting a PhD that's important for a university graduate. The entrepreneurship route, I think, is extremely important, and especially the non-corrupt entrepreneurship route. You don't wait for tenders, etc. But you develop it yourself and hard work.
You create value.
Those are lessons we learned.
You create value.
You create value. And
yes.
Sorry, Sam, I just want to say also it's a lesson I learned growing up with my father. Because he was not qualified in anything, he had several jobs. He ranged from being a clerk in a company, in a transport company, a bus company, to even being an ambulance driver. But he took all those jobs to make sure there was food on the table for us. I think sometimes I feel sad at our country is that people are only waiting for handouts.
And that has to change.
You would take any job to make sure there's food on your family's table.
Absolutely. And it's a culture and a mindset that we need to change. And it's not going to happen on its own. It is going to happen because we create other alternative avenues. And one such alternative avenue, work integrated learning can provide that. That when people participate in it, they must not just be thinking of finding a job. They must also be thinking of getting the skills to start their own businesses. And once we have that entrepreneurial bug in us, we will find a way of actually making it work for the country. So it's not something that is going to happen on its own, and it's not only going to need political leadership, it's going to need leadership in all sectors of the society.
Sam, I agree with you. If I'm an activist, it's a social activist, it's not a political one. And I keep on saying, you cannot rely on government to build the country alone.
Yeah.
It has to come from all of us, and it's hard work. You're running COMETSA on your own. Yeah. It's taken a lot of hard work. I've seen your journey.
Yeah.
You know that.
Yeah.
And it's taken a lot of hard work on yourself and sacrifices. But you've been able to run this station now that you're running, where you're exposing us to so many other people.
Absolutely. It shows that the focus and hard work and determination and passion. If you love what you do, you will unlock many avenues, and that's my strong belief. And actually, the purpose of this platform, and as you heard me saying it at the beginning, is to network and connect supply and demand, because that is entrepreneurship. If you are not able to create a platform to bring supply and demand together, you can't run proper entrepreneurship the way you will put it. And I strongly believe that, and that's why at the end of every program I ask you guys to share and exchange contact details, because if in a small way we can be able to connect somebody down there with you as SASCE, because he was listening and he has been wondering how to go about connecting with institutions of learning, and they call you, and then you solve that. And then if there's somebody who has been wanting to connect with industry, or somebody wanted to know, is there a body where we can address real skill transfer, and then they call you. If we can manage to bring that together, for us, then the work is done. Because the biggest problem for entrepreneurs is how to connect with demand.
Yes, yeah.
Young people can do anything as long as you expose them to the market. It's not even about money. It's about them being exposed to the market to showcase what they can do. Then the market will finance the entry.
I think so. It's about giving people that chance to be able to do that.
Absolutely. Shakeel, thank you so much. This has been wonderful. I know you and I, we can talk forever.
Yeah.
But it's because we are passionate about what we do. We love our country. We love the work we do. We love our organizations. But we know that we have got value to add. And I think we have just started. I hope it's not the last time that I have DUT here or SASCE here. So next time we will be specific, but today the focus was you. So if there is something specific about DUT that we want the nation to hear, or something specific about SASCE, or any of the member organizations that are doing something great, our job is to bring it to the light, to the surface.
Thank you for that, Sam. Thank you for giving me that opportunity to talk about this as well. And maybe we could even get COMETSA to sit in on some of the webinars as well. And listen to what people on the ground are saying, or post-COVID-19, how to handle world, etc.
Absolutely, and that will be helpful in terms of putting together future programs, and of course also contributing in the form of spreading the word. Absolutely. We have, this station is reaching across oceans, and I was giving somebody statistics. People will think that the highest listenership is with South Africa. No, it's with the outside world. Because that's the power of internet and the fourth industrial revolution technologies. Because once we finish here, we give you the link, it goes viral, and everybody else somewhere in the world is able to hear what we are doing, and they learn from us, and they also volunteer their expertise. That's great. I think we should explore that.
Yeah, Sam, I think that's extremely important. I'll just give you an idea. On June 21st, which is World Peace and Prayer Day for the indigenous people, started by the Native Americans.
Yeah.
I was on a panel. I was asked to be on a panel that they hosted. We had a listenership of over 17,000 before the system crashed.
Wow.
Global listenership. And I think that's the sort of COMETSA radio. I see the membership is across Africa and elsewhere as well. And once people start listening to this, that networking again is coming back. It keeps on coming back to what we embody anyway. The whole issue of networking and learning from each other.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you very much.
So thank you for having me.
Thank you very much. Is there any closing remarks other than that? Otherwise, we are done.
Sam, no, again, just to thank you for your input and advice and strategies over the years. You've even run some workshops at DUT as well. And I think that's been important. You've been an important guide for us as well. And that's one of the reasons I'd like to contribute to this as well. But as you said, you and I could talk for a long time if we carried on. So maybe it's just time to say thank you and goodbye.
Thank you. Thank you very much. It's my pleasure. Ladies and gentlemen, that was Mr. Shakeel Ori. He is the Director of Cooperative Education at the Durban University of Technology, and he has been the past president of Southern African Society for Cooperative Education, and until recently has been acting as a CEO while they are looking at repopulating the structures to make sure that we continue doing what we are doing. I hope you learn from him, and I hope we will revisit some of his discussions from his youth days into the corporate life and in industry, especially academic world. So yeah, great stuff. Once again, Sam Zima is my name, and the CEO and Executive Business Coach at COMETSA GOC International. Check our website, it's www.cometsa-goc.com. And we do invite you to consider becoming either our individual or corporate members at COMETSA Friends and Supporters Club, NPO. And you can do that online at www.cometsaclub.africa and be part of this initiative to develop our country, the continent, and the world. You can drop us an email at callcenter@cometsa-goc.com. And call center is spelled CALLCENTRE, and it's at cometsa-goc.com. We thank you for tuning in. You take care and be safe. Goodbye.